Thanks for watching Exploring the Underground of the Ozarks. In this episode, we'll be taking you to two caves located in the heart of the Lake of the Ozarks area. We'll be joined with cave experts Dwight Weaver and many more, so stick around, we're going underground.
In the pines where the sun never shines, and you shiver when the cold wind blows. Darling, little darling, what have I done that's made you treat me so?
At the current rate, over 6,000 recorded caves in Missouri. But right here in the lake area, just within the 2,500 square miles that I consider the Lake of the Ozarks region, we've got over 250 caves. Those caves come in all sizes and varieties, and most of them are fairly small, only a few hundred feet long. I'd say perhaps 30% of them are between 1,000 and 4,000 feet in length. We've only got one cave in the area that's known to be more than a mile in length. Every one of these caves is different. There are no two caves alike. They're just like people. They've got their own personality. And this particular cave here, Ozark Caverns, one of the distinguishing features of the cave is its giant showerhead stalactites, the angel shower formation. There are just very few of those anywhere in the world where you have a set of stalactites that shower a constant stream of water. In this case, we've got these big crystalline bowls that have developed below it that catch that water. That's what distinguishes this cave probably from all others.
This is the angel showers. It's made out of a showerhead bathtub combination, a very rare type of combination, only 14 in the world. The water flows from the top of the showerhead into this basin. And the basin down here, although it is filled with water, it's only about 24 inches deep. It's really not that deep. And the bottom is made out of calcite, as are all the deposits in here. And on top of that calcite, it's like a sandy type substance on top of that. And the water doesn't actually leave this basin. It flows into the other side basins on the other side, and it leaves the cave through those side basins. It goes underneath the ground. And from there, we have absolutely no idea where the water goes to. It comes out down here, and then this water will join the stream at the entranceway. But most of the water, like I said, is going underneath the basin. This is just a very small amount that comes out.
Okay, does anyone else have questions? Yes, sir. Well, we are actually just walking into a hillside, and we're go uphill just a little bit all the way through the cave, but the hill behind us is going up a whole lot faster. And right now, we're under about 40 feet of rock and trees and earth above us there. Okay, anyone else? Questions about anything?
Instead of going in a cave and just scattering out and walking in all the places, you just kind of stay in a narrow path and stay close to the stream if you've got an active stream in the cave. Because where the water periodically floods, it can repair itself. But that's not necessarily true in an area where there's no stream action. These formations are, a lot of them white, or a beige color. And if you have a lot of people passing through an area where they can touch these things, they will gradually darken the surface until it begins to show up.
Now, as you recall, I asked you very nicely when I introduced myself, please avoid touching the cave formations. This is a result from people that did not do it. See how dark that is? It's dingy, it's dead, it's beyond repair. You want to see it shiny, like this right here. I compare it to like the glaze on a glazed donut. That shows it's active, it's growing every day. This is far from being that way.
You should not handle the formations in a cave because it impedes their growth and can damage them. And you should be careful where you walk because you can step on small creatures.
One of the many attributes of the state of Missouri is its caves. With over 6,000 recorded caves in Missouri, Lake of the Ozarks is truly blessed to have one that is a must-see. Bridal Cave.
My name is David Thompson. I'm the manager of Bridal Cave, Camdenton, Missouri. Well, we opened up in 1948. We've been open up. We do guided tours every day. We do weddings here. We have a boat dock and nature trail. Top of the hill, there's a fire tower that you can go up. It's at the conservation department. The cave is 60 degrees, but it's 95% humidity, so if you get cold easily, you might want a light jacket or something. As far as shoes and stuff go like that, as long as you got any type of shoes on, you're okay. It's all concrete walkways. There are about 30 stairs in there. It's well lit, but you know, it is all walking. It's a walking guided tour, so you want to make sure you got some type of shoes on, and if you get cold easily, you'll need a jacket.
It all started a long time ago when this whole area was completely submerged in water. As the water receded deep into the ground, it had eroded away most of the minerals in here, leaving behind these large areas, cavities, water channels, and such. As the water continued to dribble down into the deep in the ground, then nature kicked in from the surface, allowing rainwater to trickle down here. That's what I was just speaking of, that within a couple weeks you'll see quite a excessive change in as far as the water dripping down through here. As the water continues to drip down through here, it's joined up with a gas called carbon dioxide, which is created by rotting foliage on the surface, leaves, grass, tree bark, and such. Between the two of them combined together, it creates an acid called carbonic acid.
Scenic-wise, this cave is one of the prettiest caves in the U.S. There's lots of formations, lots of stalactites, lots of stalagmites to look at inside there. We don't use any colored lighting in the cave, so all the colors you're going to see is the natural color. On the tour, you go in 1/4 of a mile, and you come out the same way, so it's about a half a mile walk, but you actually go inside the cave about 1/4 of a mile, and at the deepest point from surface of the ground to the bottom of the cave where you're going to be at, it's about 200 feet, almost 200 feet, so you get pretty far down in the cave. When you're going in on the tour, you do stay level, but you're going directly into a hillside, so that's the reason for getting deeper. In 1981, they went back, survey crews went back and mapped out the entire cave. There's 2 underground lakes in there, which the first one you see on tour is Mystery Lake, and the second one you're going to see, that you will see hopefully someday, is Spirit Lake, and that's just a little bit farther back from where Mystery Lake is right now. And Spirit Lake is quite a bit bigger in size compared to Mystery Lake. Mystery Lake's about 100 feet long, it's about 25 feet across, and about roughly 20 feet deep, but that fluctuates throughout the year with the water table, depending on how big the water table is. When the water table drops, so does Spirit Lake. So we do a scholarship at Camdenton High School. It's in memory of Eddie and Faye Miller, which Eddie Miller was the original manager of Bridal Cave. He ran this place for over 30 years. But we donate a $1,000 scholarship every year to Camdenton High School to a senior there, and that money comes from inside the 3rd room of the cave. We have a wishing well in there. When everyone comes on tours, they throw their coins in there, and then we collect that money out every year, and then all that money goes to the high school for a scholarship every year.
That's really nice.
And they've been doing that scholarship, as far as I know, for over 20, 30 years, so it's been around for quite a while.
That's pretty.
We do weddings here. We've been doing weddings since 1949. We do about 40 weddings a year. It's a pretty unique place to get married. Not a lot of people do it, so it's definitely something unique and something different.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is our wedding chapel. This is where the mighty deed is done. I just heard a comment. Yes, you'll see some rose petals back here from a previous wedding. Since 1949, when the very first white man weddings were performed in here, there's been a total of 2,031 weddings performed in this very room. Notice I said white man wedding. The very first wedding was of the Osage Indians. They're also the ones who named the cave.
This is our pipe organ. Pipe organs are very special. Now they're called pipe organ for 2 reasons. 1, because of how they look. 2, because of how they sound. You can see how they're broken away right here. That's because Indians or Native Americans used to have ceremonial weddings right here in this very room. And the priest that would perform the wedding would carry 2 mallets with him and actually come up to this and hit these after the wedding. You see, the priest of Native American weddings, they had to bless the wedding somehow. There's no such thing as divorce or separation in their culture. And the blessing that they would do would be the blessing of sound. Such as the broken off right here, if you were to come up here and hit one of these, it does make noise. Now, we tell people never to ever touch any cave formations. And the reason that is because the oils in our skin will adhere to the rock and cause them to stop growing.
As you recall, when they came back through here with the thought that nobody had been back this far in the cave before, And boy, were they surprised when they found this. It's called a ladder. Please don't say the Indians brought it in. Remember, the boogeyman's back here. There's no Indians going to come back this far. Besides that, they had no way to get back here until the tunnel was dug. This ladder was brought in long before the tunnel. There's two of these. Whoever brought it in came across the frozen Niagara, dragging these ladders behind them. They dropped one down to gain access to the second one. So they dropped the second one down to get down to where we are right now. So there's two of these, one on top of the other. They're still very, very strong. It's mill lumber with galvanized nails. There's a white column of onyx. They call this the Bride. All these formations have their own kind of nicknames or names. Like I say, it has not been altered in any way. People say, what do you do, spray paint that to make it so white? No, that's just natural color. To the right of the Bride, you'll see what's left of a column. Remember, that's when a stalactite and stalagmite finally met together. There's not a piece missing. It's been severed. Someone, somehow with a geologist or whatever, contends that that thing was severed due to the result of an earthquake. They don't really know. We are not too far from earthquake fault down through here, the New Madrid Fault. But instead of toppling over like a bowling pin, it just broke loose and impaled itself in the red clay mud, similar to what would happen with an icicle as it came off your house and stuck in a snowdrift. The formation to the right of that remained intact, but you can see probably how long ago and majestic those two columns look standing up there side by side.
Like I was saying, in the 1960s, the Ripley's, believe it or not, used to have a newspaper article that they would put out in flyers at their own little magazine. And this cave is believed to have more cubic inches of onyx in it than any other cave in the U.S.
This is onyx. It's a semi-precious mineral that's very, very abundant here in Bridal Cave. A lot of people say it looks like broccoli spears or mushrooms. You know, let your imagination run with you when you're in a cave. This is also mentioned in Ripley's Believe It or Not. You might have seen billboards advertising Bridal Cave as seen on Ripley's Believe It or Not. Well, this is what old Ripley baby's talking about. He contends that there's enough onyx in this wall between ceiling and floor and left or right. If you were to break off a piece the size of a baseball, you could supply every citizen in the United States.
We do house anywhere between 50 to 200 bats in here at any time. The type of bat that we have, the most common bat, is called a pipistrelle, which is called the little Missouri brown bat. Now, the little Missouri brown bat, or another common name, would be the Ozark bat. If you make a fist, it's usually about half the size of your fist as an adult pipistrelle bat. But right now we are getting towards the end of mating season for the bats, so they are a little bit scarce. But there are probably anywhere between 50, maybe up in the summertime, up as many as 500 bats here in Bridal Cave. The little bats that we have, little Missouri brown bats, they do exit the cave just how we exit the cave, through our gate. It's a very special gate that we use, and it's just enough space for them to fly in and out, but so that animals cannot get in. They leave at night, every night, anywhere between 9 to 10 p.m. And when they leave, they go out and they can eat up to 3,000 mosquitoes or bugs every night, or up to 3 times their weight. Because there's no springs or rivers here in the cave, there's not that much mold or algae. And without mold or algae, you don't have bugs. And without bugs, you don't have spiders. Without spiders, you don't have reptiles. Without reptiles, you don't have animals. So the only thing living in here is us and the bats. However, the air quality in here is phenomenal, because when water seeps through the Earth's surface, rainwater actually turns into carbonic acid. Now, carbonic acid is just like the fizz in your soda pop, but without the fizz. And then once that water is released into the atmosphere, it breaks down all the carbon minerals, releases them into the cave, and when it hits the oxygen, it actually turns back into just regular rainwater. Because there's no natural water source, no springs or rivers in here, like I say, without the mold or algae, that means there's no pollen, there's no mold, there's no ragweed. So for people that have allergies and they come into the cave, especially children, they can breathe so well. The air quality here is absolutely phenomenal. And a lot of people are a little worried about that, but that's one thing we always do reassure them. But back to bats, we do have anywhere, probably right now, anywhere between 50 to maybe 200 bats here in the cave. Like I said, it's the little Missouri brown bat or the pipistrelle bat. Now bats, they have a lot of uses. Not only do they eat the mosquitoes, such if you have a cave or a hollowed out trees around your home, they will actually fly around your home and eat the mosquitoes. That's why at night, especially around this cave, there's no mosquitoes outside. It's absolutely awesome. You can fish it out here by the water, and you don't have the problem of being bit by bugs. Now, one thing that they do, a lot of people don't know this, especially in South America, it's up to a $5 billion a year project. You see, they employ anybody from farmers to little children to go into caves to dig out bat poop, or guano is the most common name. Now, guano has very special uses. One very special use that it has is mascara. Most people don't know this, but that mascara bottle that women use to put on their eyes, that mascara is anywhere between 70 to 90% pure bat guano. A lot of people don't know that. It's actually amazing. That eyeliner pencil that you have is about 50% processed bat guano. They add hardeners with it, put in petroleum wax to preserve it, then they put in colors to go on the eyes. Actually, guano would probably be some of the best oil for your engine. The viscosity of guano never breaks down. If you could harvest it and filter it through, if you want to change your oil, you put in bat poo or guano, you never have to change your oil ever again. But bats do have a lot of purposes, you know, like I said. We actually contribute bats to slowing down the West Nile virus. The West Nile virus is very prominent. It runs in mosquitoes. I know several conservation agencies, not necessarily here in Missouri, but more down south, they've been having bat homes built, and we do give them away for free the plans to build your own bat houses at your home. Of course, the more bats there are, the more mosquitoes they eat. The more mosquitoes they eat, the less likelihood of getting the West Nile virus.
You might characterize a cave as an island of life, because the animals that live in the cave, there are certain ones of those that have no other way to survive except inside the cave environment. The mouth of the cave, like the one we're sitting in, is the mouth of the cave, and that is where all the nutrients come from. Your animal life in the cave is basically in three categories. You have those animals that don't really live in the cave, but they use it from time to time, like bats. They'll fly outside to get their food, but they fly back inside. They leave their droppings on the floor, which is a food source for another type of animal.
And it's one of the 4 different species of salamanders we have in here. And they're attracted to this guano pile. The bats are the only animals that leave the cave every day, and they go out and eat insects to capture the sun's energy. They drop their guano. Microorganisms start breaking down the guano. Small invertebrates and things like the millipedes you're seeing here start eating the stuff that's breaking down the guano. And then eventually the salamanders and the frogs and so forth will start feeding on the stuff that's feeding on that. So we have a whole food chain in here.
And then you have those animals that will spend most of their time in the cave, usually in the twilight zone before it's totally dark. And they may come out into the entrance areas, but they really don't get outside. Salamanders are a good example. The salamanders have to keep their body moist because of the way they breathe. And so they will come out into the entrance areas where it's still moist. And in a wetland situation like we have here in this valley, they may actually venture out into the bog. But generally they don't go too far. And then you have those animals that live in the cave their whole life cycle. And they're generally what we call troglodytic. They don't have much pigment or no pigment at all on their skin. Some of them are blind. And you have a pyramid of life in the cave. And the bats are at the top of the pyramid. And each animal lives off of the other. So and no particular cave has a lot of any one species. So if you're not careful when you go caving, you can destroy the entire ecosystem in a cave by wiping out 2 or 3 species. We had the Arctotherum, or giant short-faced cave bear, that lived here, right here in this area. And the bones of this particular bear have been found in a cave. It's in Perkins Cave and in Carroll Cave, which are probably not more than 10 miles as a crow flies from where we're sitting right now. And these were huge bears. They were larger than the Kodiak bear. Very ferocious, great predators. But as the years went by, we got a population in here of the black bears and the brown bears, or black bears in particular. And they're the ones largely that were living in these, using the caves as a denning site in the wintertime. And they would go into the cave, and they had an excellent sense of smell. And they would find a nice clay spot, and they would wallow it out just like a dog does, go round, round, round. And they use the same den year after year after year. So they get pretty large. Some of those bear dens will be you know, 8 and 10 feet across, and they're just a bowl that they've worn out in the clay. The females will give birth during that winter period. And depending upon the situation in the cave, I would imagine this particular cave here, there's one bear bed just a little ways inside. Was probably kind of a tricky one to use because this cave stream floods once in a while. And I can imagine the bear being snoozing away in that den in a winter when it's real wet and we have a lot of rain and that thing floods him out. Yeah. But when the settlers came in, they very quickly discovered that these caves were a good place to go bear hunting. And so it didn't take them long to exterminate the bears in this area by hunting them out during the winter period.
My name is Cindy Hall. I am a park naturalist here at Lake Ozark State Park, and I have actually been in the park. This is my 20th year as a park naturalist. The park is a big park. It's over 17,400 acres. A lot to do in the park, and as a naturalist, my job is to do interpretation and work with the resources, the actual plants and animals, that type of stuff in the park. We are actually at Ozark Caverns, which is on the very south side of Lake Ozark State Park, off of Highway A out of Lynn Creek. It's a quieter side of the park. We have a visitor center here and a cave. The state of Missouri purchased Ozark Caverns back in 1978. Before that, it was a private show cave. And the state of Missouri bought it then and made it part of Lake of the Ozarks State Park. We ran it as a tour cave until 1985. They closed down for a year and constructed Ozark Caverns Visitor Center. In 1986, we reopened and started giving tours of the cave again. And our tours are unique in that we don't have any type of electric lighting in the cave. Everybody gets to carry their own handheld lantern, so you kind of get the feeling you're exploring the cave on your own. By using electric lanterns, it's better for the cave system. Electric lights are not the best thing for a cave. It throws off your energy level, and the animals that live in the cave are used to a certain amount of energy, so when you put electric lighting in a cave, it kind of influences or affects them quite a bit. The animal life that we have in the cave, we do have several animals that use the cave. We do have 4 different species of salamander that use the cave. We have the cave salamander, which is a bright orange salamander, the dark-sided salamander, which is kind of a dark salamander with yellow markings, the slimy salamander, which is a dark salamander with yellow dots on it. It's very slimy. And then we have one very unique one called the grotto salamander, which is found in caves in the Ozarks and nowhere else in the world. And it is the only blind species that we do have in the cave system. As far as how deep the cave goes, we have about 3/4 of a mile of passageway in the cave system. Now, when you take a typical traditional tour down here, you're going to see about 1/4 of a mile of it. You'll go 1/4 of a mile in and 1/4 of a mile out. The other passageways in the cave are crawlways, so you have to get down on your hands and knees and crawl, and even get on your belly and do some of the hardcore, what we call spelunking. Most people don't want to do that. There are a lot of people that do, but most of our park visitors are kind of not into that. We do have a stream that flows through the cave. If you take a tour of the cave, you will walk the whole entire length of that stream. It does fluctuate a little bit. It's down quite a bit because we haven't had a lot of rain. Even the rainfall that we had this past weekend didn't affect it a lot. When our water tables are full, and we've had a lot of rain week after week after week, the cave can flood within 45 minutes, so it doesn't take that long from the water once it falls on the surface to get in the cave system. Yeah, we have 3 different types of tours that we offer here at Ozark Caverns. Our most popular is the traditional tour, and that tour takes, give or take, an hour, and we kind of cover the basics of caves and, in a broader sense, the geology of the Ozarks, how that got here, and how caves are a unique kind of habitat in Missouri, and why we need to protect them and so forth. And that is geared for all age levels. And then several years ago we realized on a lot of our tours we would be having the geology professor along with the 4-year-old kid, and that exactly didn't work out too well. So we started offering children's tours for younger kids, 10 and younger, and that's been a real popular thing. It's only 1/8 of a mile into the cave and 1/8 of a mile back out, and we gear it towards that age group. That's not to say adults can't go on it. Adults usually do, and they end up learning a lot about the cave. And then we have what we call the speleology tour, and that can last up to 2 hours. And that was geared for people who've been in lots of caves, or familiar with how caves formed, or one a little more than what how a stalactite forms or stalagmite forms. They're generally a little smaller, and we can kind of take our time through the cave, and we can really go in depth about the geology and biology of the cave system. The cave is 56 degrees, and that is our average annual temperature on the surface in central Missouri here. If you come out to the cave floor is made of compacted cave clay with gravel on it. We tend to recommend either hiking boots, tennis shoes. I've certainly had people with all kinds of flip-flops and things go through it, but there is water in the cave, so we do have some puddles. We do recommend a jacket. 56 degrees for some people is just perfect, and it's no problem for them. For other people, 56 degrees can be very chilly, especially young kids. So we do recommend a jacket to bring along. We do provide all the lanterns, so you don't have to bring a light or anything like that. Our phone number is 573-346-2500. We do have a schedule. We do have our brochures located in the lake area as well. We are located off of Highway A, about 8 miles from Highway 54, Inland Creek. You can also look at us up on the web under our State Park website. Any of those methods will be fine. If you call, we'll be happy to give you directions and so forth. It costs $6 for adults, $5 for teenagers, that's 13 to 19 years, $4 for children, and 5 and under are free to tour the cave.
Is it drinkable? You know, that's a common question, and in this area, as the water comes through the rock down here, there's not much filtration takes place. So once again, you know, we don't know exactly where that's coming from. So let's consider our source where it's coming from. Here comes down the rainfall somewhere, and let's say that the guy, where this water is going underground, let's say that the guys use some pesticides there, they're going to end up right here. If the person has a bad sewage system, it's going to end up right here. A hog farm, that would be the ultimate, wouldn't it? But, you know, that's the problem we have with our entire underground water system here in the Ozarks. You know, fortunately, it's still in pretty good shape, but, you know, with more and more development, who knows what's going to happen to our underground system.
I think it's important that we learn about caves, particularly if you are a developer, a land developer, because it just seems like there's so many developers that do not care about the resources beneath their feet. We have at least one cave right here in the Lake of the Ozarks area that has an entrance that's easily seen, in which there is now development all over the top of the cave and around the entrance. The entrance has been so changed. That cave had endangered bats in it. I don't know what the status of the bat colony is at the present time, but I imagine those bats are probably going to have to move out and find another resource. There's only about 100 caves out of the 6,000 known caves that we have in Missouri that gray bats can use. They're very picky about the cave they use. It has to be a certain type of temperature and humidity that they can use. And the Indiana bats are even more sensitive to the particular situation, and there's probably only about 40 caves in Missouri that the Indiana bat can safely use. So if we take away a cave like that, we're actually hurting the population. But they built condos by this cave. I didn't know, it was it came very close to it. But if they were to build condos over the top of this system, it's already got probably a dozen houses on top of it. That could be very detrimental to the cave.
In the pines where the sun never shines, and you shiver when the cold wind blows. Darling, little darling, what have I done that's made you treat me so? You cause me to weep, and you cause me to mourn, and you cause me to leave